and welcome to Talk Solent. And I hardly dare say the word, but I must. Budget. Are you all budgeted out? Because I am aware some of you are watching today, Wednesday, but some more of you will be watching on Thursday, by which stage you probably will be budgeted out. However, there's so much that affects all of us that we thought we would take the benefit of the people who are with me on the panel today, because they've all got opinions and they're all involved. And luckily, there are some very interesting developments for this area, so that's good. Let me introduce you to our three Brains Trust members. And first of all, it's Danny Stapple, who we welcome back. Danny is the coordinator for Eastleigh Borough Churches, and very good to have you back.
Great to be here.
Rob Dewing, welcome, Rob.
Hi.
Apart from making lovely websites, he's also represents the Federation of Small Businesses in the Forest.
In the New Forest.
In the New Forest, which is very good news to have him today because of what's come up in the budget. And Alex Laxton, another good reason that we've got you. You are, of course, the MD of Perspective Communications, which
That's right,
is a new business.
A new business for us, yes,
Right.
part of the group.
So just quickly tell us what's that about.
Business communications for business. There we are, telecoms.
Right, he's a man who is growing his empire.
Give him a call if your phone works.
Yeah, if it doesn't come to me anyway.
Right. All right then, panel. So today we have had some very interesting announcements, some which I think you'll be pleased about. I think we were all hoping that the University Hospital Southampton NHS Foundation Trust would have good news, because the Chancellor has agreed to invest £2 million towards a new children's emergency and trauma department for children across the south of England. So I'm assuming that's what we call an A&E. And it's been talked about, and indeed, I have to say, and so did Fiona Dalton, their chief exec, really pushed for by MPs, the Murray Parish Trust, and the Echo and us, and so lots and lots of people, plus patients past and present. It's got to be good, hasn't it, for the children? Yep.
It has.
Absolutely.
Danny?
Yeah, I think any injection of fresh cash, as it were, to help health is always good, isn't it? Particularly towards little ones. I'm struck by the need for mental health in particular to be addressed. So I guess, if I understand it correctly, in January, the £290 million that's been earmarked for perinatal care with children as well, I think that, with their mums and all the things that they're causing issues around mental health, is the next key area, I would say. But this sounds fantastic. So,
well, it makes you wonder. It's an A&E. Now, Danny, I think you are happy for me to mention what happened to your daughter.
yes.
Just tell us briefly what did happen.
Yes, she suffered after the birth of our granddaughter, her first child. Andy, her husband, and her completely blindsided, as we all were. By 8 weeks after the birth, she suffered from what is known as postpartum psychosis. When I first saw the reactions that she was having to life generally, I thought it was some form of extreme postnatal depression. But apparently we've learnt, and if it is still on iPlayer, the BBC did a documentary, My Baby Psychosis and Me, that featured Hannah and Andy and Lester and ourselves, and together was another person on that unit. And what we learnt there, not a lesson I think I would have ever chosen to learn, but what we learnt there was just how systemic that problem was, postpartum psychosis, 1 in 500 births. But a mother and baby unit at Winchester, to see the benefit of what we just assume might be everyone's opportunity, only 17 of those in the country. And so we got to see that there's this really gaps in the patchwork quilt of provision.
Yeah.
Postcode lottery, isn't it?
It really was. I mean, I'm really thankful that we were in Fairhope travelling to Winchester, but the people we got to know, Aylesbury, Oxford, it made me realise just the extent of what can be done. And this is why I think the A&E is great for the children, because it's the early years. If you can really help there, you can make a massive difference.
What was the name of the unit?
Melbury Lodge.
Melbury Lodge.
Yeah.
We should say it isn't the baby blues, which a lot of us who have had children,
No.
It's much more than that.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. It's explained to us, as it says in the documentary. Dr. Gregoire, who's been on all over the BBC since, has explained so clearly that it's completely different, which was helpful to us. It's the brain basically breaks so that the thoughts that would normally be processed rush at you at the same time. Causes a great form of fear, and all your thoughts are completely confused. So that's why suicidal ideation is so strong, and Hannah tried to kill herself.
But she's on the mend.
Occasions. She is, thank you. And one thing that's fascinating is Dr. Gregoire, I asked him, why on earth do you go to this part of medicine? It must be so. He goes, well, it is some of the most distressing things that can happen to a person, but so many get better. I remember when the first time I had that. How long did it take us? 4.5 months of being really ill. The shock for us, sorry, that's a strange pun actually, was ECT. We'd fought really strongly not to have electroconvulsive therapy, thinking it was barbaric and cruel, but she had 11 sessions of that, and at that 10th, 11th session, well, it seemed to make a difference. Now, they don't know why. That's what made us all concerned, but it showed me again how if we can release funding, and I do hope, I'm not saying it's because of that documentary, but we found ourselves in the eye of a storm over this issue, so I hope that's helpful for our listeners.
It is a great blessing she's on the mend.
It is.
We send her our love too, and your little Esther.
Yes, indeed.
So going back then, gentlemen, to the fact that this 2 million is going to be put in, so to a sort of A&E for children. I mean, you might say, I would say, that what Danny has described is an absolutely chronic need for a child to be and mother to be seen quickly, but I'm not sure that that's what they've got in mind. It sounds like they're trying to find a place for children who don't have to join the horror stories you hear from Queen Alexandra, the local hospital in Portsmouth, where you have ambulances queuing round and round and round. So it'll be interesting to see what it's used for. Rob?
Because getting ambulances into Southampton General is not particularly easy either, because it's a suburban location.
They've had problems.
So they use the air ambulance quite a lot into the General.
So, yes, it obviously is a thing that's needed, Alex, isn't it? To treat children differently, rather than bring them into the main adult system.
Yeah, I think it's going to be £2 million is going to be a lot of money to be well used, hopefully, at the Southampton General, and let's wait and see what happens in the coming months.
Yeah. What excites me is that there was such a coordinated campaign to try and get the government to listen. If I understand it correctly, you got multiple commitment to it from I think MPs and I think the experts, of course. So when it does come down the pipe, it's ready. And I always get excited by local people taking that opportunity to do it.
It was impressive, wasn't it?
I think it was.
Sort of everybody came together, and it's happened not just in the Southampton area, in other areas of the country. I think there's 4 of them, but it's good news.
Just good news.
So that was a very good thing that came out of Mr. Osborne's budget today, folks. But or yesterday, if you're watching on Thursday. But let me ask you now about academies. Now, he's decided, which not everybody agrees with, to take all schools, primary and secondary, away from local education authorities. He intends that they have longer days, better teaching and more things like sport, extracurricular activities. But the LEAs are saying unnecessary. You know, a good team leader in a school can produce that anyway. Alex, you lead people.
Some of them are not long out of school.
No, yeah, exactly. I actually think it's quite a good idea. We deal with a few academies in London, and those schools have expanded quite significantly. They have a lot of fun. Not necessarily funding that's come down, but they can control their expenditure. They can use the money where they see fit into local community things that will help the children of the local community, and invest in projects and areas of the school. So the schools that we deal with have expanded significantly over the last year or so to allocate more primary school places, years 1 and 2, I think. They're also invested in sport, and they've got more control on the
But they haven't all been successful. And this is the point the LEAs are making, that some of them have failed big time and cost a lot of money.
Well, some of them were failing schools in the first place, weren't they, that then got transformed into academies to give them more autonomy to try and haul themselves out of the pit. And I think there's an interesting debate around whether it is good to give schools that autonomy, or whether you do actually need some kind of overarching authority in the current model to say, no, this is how we do things. Now, as a small business person, I kind of feel inclined instinctively towards less government control is better. I think one of the controversial things about the academies has been that amongst the things they have independence with is things like setting salary levels, both at the chalk face for the individual teachers and also for people like chief execs, some of whom have made some quite high-profile stories. But if the overall story is that it's improving the quality of education that gets delivered because the individual school has more control over what it does with its money and how it attracts parents and pupils.
Okay, Dan, we'll have to take a break in about a minute, but we'll come back. But give us what you think.
Well, 20 years as a governor, secondary school. The last 10 of those, up to 2012, was as chair. And we transferred over to outstanding and all that stuff. So I went through all those loops. I simplistically think that Labour had it right. The children's plan is one of the loveliest ideas I think I'd ever seen, from young upwards, controlled but free for delivery in terms of emphasis, the Sure Start centres. The whole idea I thought was fascinating.
Well.
And then, as you know, what's going to happen to those, academisation is for a different reason than it started.
So the school you were a chair of the governors was
yes.
a what? An LEA?
Yes.
Right.
Community school, yeah.
And it worked well?
Yes, it'd always been very successful in that capacity. I chose to leave when it became an academy because I could see that what it needed was educationalists at the helm, because it was a very technical changeover. It's been an academy now for 2 years, and it's still doing very well. It's still doing all that it did before. The appointment of a business manager makes a big difference because of the freedom that you have at your own finances. And I think, in principle, I always think that's better. So overall, I think
we'll come back in a minute and we'll just talk about maybe the downside. I think we've talked up the academies, but there are, and certainly today, there are many people coming out and saying, you know, it's about good leadership, good teachers and all the rest of it. It doesn't matter what you call it.
Yeah.
Going to take a break, come back in a minute and we'll have some more budget as well with my guests.
With my poor credit, I felt toxic.
Finance companies were asking very high interest rates.
Couldn't afford it.
My only option was an out-of-warranty used car for cash, or so I thought.
I called Wheels for Sure. Week later, I had a lease for a brand new car.
All manufacturer-backed and upgrade to a new one every 3 years.
I felt valued. Too good to be true? No, simply true.
Used car on a costly loan or an affordable new leased one, you know the choice.
For sure!
Click or call Wheels for Sure on 0800 044 5806 now. We can help.
How Sif broke the curse of streaks. The princess cleaned and cleaned, but horrid streaks cursed her bathroom until she summoned Sif, Power and Shine. Sif banished all the limescale and streaks. For 100% streak-free shine, there's always a beautiful ending with Sif, Power and Shine.
Wow, look, it's a live cheetah. She's fast and dangerous. But do you know what's faster? When you download with BT Infinity. It's so fast. Is this safe?
It's perfectly safe. Oh gosh, do something.
Distract it. It's gonna eat me.
I've got meat! I've got meat!
Do I just stand still?
BT Infinity fibre optic broadband offers faster download speeds than Sky.
So, what's the best thing about knowing that Sure compressed deodorant does actually last as long as a big can?
Well, I can use my flatmate's can of it for weeks before she'll suspect anything. Yeah, that was me. Sorry.
Try compressed and join the 9 million women who've chosen it. Sure, it won't let you down.
At Unilever, we want our brands to help create a bright future. Persil Small and Mighty is concentrated, so it does the same amount of washing, but is made with less water and uses less packaging, which makes a difference to our planet. Unilever makes some of the world's most well-known brands, and we're working to reduce our environmental impact. Smaller packs are just one of the ways we're helping to create a bright future.
Hello, welcome back. We've got the budget to talk about, all things that affect us down in the south. Of course, we've put a great big tick by Mr Osborne for his plan to introduce a Southampton Children's Hospital A&E, Emergency and Trauma Department, £2 million towards that. So that's very good. We're just on this slightly more vexed question of academies, because he has announced today that every secondary, every primary will become an academy in a couple of years' time. So we've kind of talked up before the break how good they are, but are there any reservations?
Yeah, thank you, because it's only an incremental yes, because there's also quite big negatives, I think, particularly in Hampshire, because Hampshire has been a very good educational authority historically. And one of the things I was always very impacted by, although all the schools that were doing well, and the one that I was chair of governors was doing well, we knew a chunk of the central fund wasn't coming to us, but going to help those in the more deprived and difficult situations, so that we were all helping those that were struggling to succeed. And obviously with the Academies programme that completely goes. So it becomes a little bit like a survival of the fittest thing, which I think it needs to be modified for it to be successful.
If you had... Sorry,
if you've got survival of the fittest, does that not... You will end up losing school places in local communities, but does that end up removing the poor performing schools that doesn't have great teaching, that has got issues? Does it take them out and leaves you with a good selection of good schools?
Sorry, as long as they've got the facility, as long as the other good schools have got the room
to keep
to bring in the extra intake.
Well, and the timing. It takes time to transition, and that means you've got 5 or 6 years, I'd say, on average, to move from difficulty into high performing, and that means a whole chunk of students that won't be helped for that period. That bit.
Yeah, this is kids' lives you're talking about.
I think that's the thing. It has an effect later down the line, so it is tricky. I think some form of modifying that. Now, the teaching school partnerships. That's exciting, I think, where teaching schools were formed to be a bit like teaching hospitals are, to try and spread that skill set that you're mentioning there, Alex, across the wider, smaller area. That could be quite successful.
See, the benefit of LEAs, to my simple untrained mind, is that you have, in local authorities, you have a lot of people who understand money, you have a backup system of lots of education committees, people who spend their lives looking at this. Will the same safeguards be in for academies?
There's elements in there of the debate you have in the NHS, isn't it, about whether individual GPs in a practice are better off out there helping patients, or are they better off running autonomous surgery? And I guess you've got the same debate. If you've got a surgery that's in a difficult area that's trying to stand on its own 2 feet, then you've got the same debate around the benefits of autonomy versus, well, it's pretty tough for the guys who are in a bad place to start with.
Yeah, and it's managing that transition, I think. You get the impression that there's not much care in the decision. Nothing's been announced, for instance, on how the teaching school partnerships will deal with everyone becoming an academy. That's quite a lot of schools still to come in quite quickly. That's a bit destabilising, I think.
And yes, I think the thing that we've been talking about on this programme, and that is that sure starts are going to be done away with. So the little ones who need that structure and help and getting used to school, they're going to go straight into a academy-run primary, I'm assuming. But what will happen to them before that?
Well, I mean, I was fascinated well before they were implemented, the thinking about what we've learnt about brain plasticity with young children up to the age of 3, and how significant input and early intervention is in terms of impact for the rest of life in those first 3 years. So I have always been my heart's really beaten strongly for Sure Start. So I'm concerned that the benefits of that will be lost. I think you've got a point.
And I think some of the politicians will look at some of the things he's done and said, well, actually, to keep Sure Starts, perhaps he should have put something on whiskey and other spirits.
I can't help feeling Sure Start was a victim of political decisions. I think Sure Start was a Labour initiative in the first place, wasn't it? And it was one of the first things that got the knife from the incoming government in 2010.
Could be, couldn't it?
I think it may well be.
Now, because we've got business brains today, this is a bit of luck, because it wasn't planned. Like most things on this show, of course, are planned. But you can tell us all about what he's done. He said he is more than doubling the small business rate relief permanently from 6,000 to 15,000, raising the threshold for the higher rate. This will see 600,000 small businesses paying no business rates at all from April next year. Now, you represent Small Businesses Federation, Rob. What do you reckon on that?
It's tremendously good news. The threshold at which exemption from business rates began to be taken away was quite low, and to have raised that by more than double is going to mean a lot more small businesses falling into getting relief, which is great news.
I mean, in simple terms, your small businesses you deal with, what is their constant beef? What will make them happy now in this budget?
Yeah, clearly lifting of that overhead for the smallest of them will make a difference. I mean, when I talk to small businesses, I hear a lot about the burdens of employing people, the difficulties of keeping on the right side of legislation around that is a minefield for an employer. I hear indeed a lot about the general demands of complying with health and safety legislation, and often that's a perceptual thing as much as the actual reality of how tough it is. And maybe Al can comment on this because part of his business is in the area of ensuring compliance.
Well, yours is rather bigger than that, isn't it? But you're in charge of quite a lot of people, aren't you?
Yeah, and well, we're a service business, so we do a lot of electrical testing and compliance to make sure that people are on the right side of health and safety. They've got the right documents and reports, etc. But I think the biggest thing for us as a business has been well, the rates is going to really help. And I mean, another thing I suppose to add to your list is cash flow and managing finances, and so what George Osborne has announced today, the relief to small business rates and the drop in corporation tax as well. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Now fall to 17% from 2020.
So the rate relief is brilliant because they calculate rate relief, or they calculate business rates upon the size of their premise that the company occupies. It's done on square footage and rate multiplier. So for most, because property prices are going up, rateable values go up, and for most small businesses they come outside of the rate relief. So your average shop would have rates for about £6,000, which was on the limit of what you could claim relief for. So putting it up is going to save companies. In our office, it will save us about £6,000 a year.
Really?
Yeah. So because it will become exempt.
That's good.
And then corporation tax is going to be brilliant as well.
Yeah, Danny, what do you make of it? You've been attached to business all your working life.
I'm a sole trader, but self-employed, and therefore, again, I suppose I'm consistent. I've always loved flexibility and freedom. I think it's the loveliest thing when people can have freedom to expand, and I think if it does that, and it sounds from what these guys are saying, particularly for small businesses, which I do think are very much the future shape of the life in this country for generation of wealth for most people who aren't tied to the other thing is the other massive companies, but not much in between. And I think it's quite exciting to think, and for me it's all a part of a bigger story, Chrissy. I think the EU referendum, what sort of country are we? This is starting to make us a little bit different, you see. This makes us quite entrepreneurial, and I quite like that idea, I must say.
Yes, but he doesn't want to promote that because he's on Mr. Cameron's side. In fact, his first opening statement was to say, hey, this is all because of being in the EU. And, who'd have blamed him?
I do apologise for mentioning the referendum, but it does strike me there's something happening.
I think there's a different mindset in the UK around entrepreneurialism and around business that you don't see so much in a lot of the rest of Europe. It's too generalistic to say all of Europe. But
right.
One of his lines that he said this afternoon was that for some taxes we are the highest in Europe, and he wants to become the lowest.
Yes,
so he wants to bring everything down to make it more attractive, I suppose, for people coming here and starting businesses. And
so if somebody watching this today was thinking about starting a small business, probably from home, maybe using a few outworkers, is this a good time?
Yes. Coming out of a recession is always a good time to start a business. In fact, late in a recession is a good time to start a business because you get ahead of the competition, and if you can make your business stand up during recession, you know damn well it'll fly when the economy turns around.
So true.
And it's often small businesses that lead economies out of recession because they're nimble, because often also you've got skilled people who may have been made redundant from big corporates, so they often lead the way with self-employment, whether it's starting, if you like, genuine new businesses or starting as consultants to their previous employer, but with a much more flexible model for both parties. That's something that goes on quite a lot during recession. So small businesses are a very important part of the economy as you come out of recession.
Right.
I agree.
So we're not going to get into the referendum unless you're all of different views. If you all agree, then it's not much point. So just out of interest, who's for getting out?
Yeah, I would be.
Right.
Okay. As Federation of Small Businesses, we are being very studiously on the fence. We're aiming to give our members all the information they need to make a decision. I have to say, there ain't too much of that information around at the moment.
That counts as a don't know.
It does. It's very diplomatic.
It's very well done.
I'm on a 3-line whip on that one.
Alex?
I'd like to stay.
You like to stay in? Well, we can talk about it then. What we can't have is just very biased stuff going on.
Sure.
We're going to have to take another break in a minute, but I think this budget was aimed at staying in, wasn't it? And of course it was, because he represents the government who have pitched to stay in. But what do you think it did anything for the people who want to get out?
Sorry, no, you can.
Well, I was just going to say that I think it just goes to show that it doesn't matter at the level of most of the decisions that one makes. I think all the conversation is roughly the same. It's not going to make much difference economically, much difference to trade, much difference really. We'll find a way to renegotiate all that stuff. What I think it's all about is not politics or economics, and obviously representing the church, you'd say that, I would say it, but I think it's about destiny. It's about history. It's so much more.
So it's a heart and soul thing.
It's an absolute heart and soul thing.
Save the thought, Rob. We're going to take a break and we'll come back. There are some other quite contentious ones. 150 million will support those who are homeless to reduce rough sleeping. That is such a big subject. I'm not sure 150 million will quite do it. But there you go. We'll come back and talk about that, as well as capital gains tax being cut. See you in a minute.
Big entertainment just got bigger. With BT TV, you now get bigger shows, bigger sports, and bigger movies. All for tiny prices.
Rebel, and now end with the big splits.
I can't do the splits.
It's okay, we'll do it with special effects.
All for tiny prices.
BT TV. Bigger shows, bigger sports, bigger movies.
A rare and beautiful tiger, trapped by vicious steel cables, slowly dying. WWF's anti-poaching patrol found her barely alive, with deep wounds from the tightening snare, killed for profit. Another victim of wildlife crime. There are as few as 3,200 tigers left in the wild. By adopting a tiger with WWF, you can help stop their painful and needless deaths. Adoption costs just £3 a month, and you'll be supporting our vital work to help protect tigers. We'll send you an exciting adoption pack showing you how essential your help is. There's even a cuddly toy tiger. If you know someone who cares about tigers, adoption makes a great gift. Please call 0800 038 0890, text PROTECT10 to 70099, or visit tigerprotect.com. Adopt a tiger for just £3 a month and help us stop wildlife crime. Thank you.
With BT Mobile, you can get the UK's best value 4G plan. Starting from just £5 a month if you've got BT broadband at home. Enjoy the combined power of fast 4G and Wi-Fi in more places than any other mobile provider. And the peace of mind of monthly spend caps. You'll get a 12-month contract and you can keep the phone you love. Switch today from just £5 a month. Anyone can get BT Mobile, and with 3 SIM-only plans, you'll find one that's right for you. Visit bt.com/mobile or call 0800 345 7345.
Hello, it was irresistible. I couldn't help myself. I had to find out where we all stood on, because it was so clear, obviously, where our Chancellor stands, and he stands for staying in. And Alex is a stay in. Rob is a maybe, don't know, read more. And Danny wants to get out. Rob, you had a thought. I asked you about whether the budget was,
Well, the debate we were having was whether the in-out debate was about economics and facts, or was it about heart and soul? And I think we came to the view there's a strong element of heart and soul in it. And
heart and soul?
It's quite, whether people want to feel part of a federalist Europe, or whether they want to be part of a proudly standing alone British Isles.
Well, I must admit, that does worry me, because I don't think that's what Brexit should be. I think Brexit is a new set of collaborative arrangements, because I absolutely don't believe in pride. That's not a good thing. I think what I do believe in is consultative approaches, and being in Saudi Arabia, as I have the last 2.5 years, to see how Brits, given the size of our country, how all those mechanisms that we had when we had that scope of influence are still incredibly robust. People want to borrow those skill sets. So we can not rule anymore, in my opinion, but we can consult and we can help. India, for instance, really excites me. Given what we did, some of the things we did in history are not good. So no pride in this at all, I promise. For me, to see the islands get together again. Now, I know the Scottish thing's going to be a great question if we go Brexit, but what about Ireland? Have you checked out what they're saying? Given that they've received as much as they're likely to from the EU.
I think they're broadly pro staying in, aren't they? They've been huge beneficiaries.
Well, but they're saying, that's it then.
So, Alex, come back on this.
Thanks for the money, we're
You're
off.
a stay-in. He's a stay-inner. Give him a chance.
Indeed.
Well, I think we can renegotiate a lot of the trade agreements and the free movement of people, etc. But I think it's better to stay as a larger community, as a Europe, to act as one whole with the United Nations and various councils that go on, than be out on our own. We may have come back to a similar thing with Scotland, out, in, out. Are they going to be detached from us and try and do everything by themselves, or are we going to detach ourselves from Europe and try and do everything ourselves? So there's lots of questions.
I honestly again, if I don't mind me saying, I just don't think that's the choice. Going on our own, I don't know if that's anything to do with going out.
So you'd see a new set of alliances?
Oh, an amazing set. China, India, South America, New Zealand and Australia, going back to the guys and saying sorry for what we did in 1975.
They're going to go. Stretch to
Look,
India.
we're doing this with Japan and China.
So let's join them.
Yeah.
Let's join them.
Your service industry will stretch to India.
No, but we could. I would
a call centre there.
enjoy doing business in Europe, and to be able to do business easily in Europe would be good.
Right.
Okay.
We've just set you up with a new call centre in India, actually.
It's all sorted. I've got one client that wants to start a call centre in Pakistan, so we're consulting on that one.
Yeah.
Right then, sugar. Let's talk about sugar.
He's an amazing guy.
He is, but the Chancellor was not talking about him, but he was talking about a new sugar levy. He claims the government are very, very concerned that all our children are too fat and they're having lots and lots of sugar in these drinks, and therefore you've got to stop all that. So there's going to be a levy, and it will rely on what the producer of each drink puts in. Sorry, it will be dependent on how much sugar, as I understand it.
Yep.
Is that what you understood?
Yeah, pretty much.
And the levy will raise 520 million. Well, I'm not sure where that's going to go. But is this right? Is this the nanny state kicking in?
I'll kick off. I think it is. I think it's the best way to do it, though, is to make people pay for it. Either the company decides to change its content or it raises the price. It's a bit like tobacco, it's a bit like drink. I think on things that we want to encourage people not to do, good progressive taxation is a good answer. So I'm absolutely for it, but let people pay extra if they want to and not be criticised. If someone wants a shorter, more enjoyable life, I'm not sure it's my job to tell them that they should live a long time because they must live a long time. I just don't see that's my job.
Well, that's what the government's doing. It's saying we will tell you now, and it's aimed
Well, they're not
at
saying
children.
you can't buy sugary drinks. They're saying you want a sugary drink, you pay more for it, and then we're going to use the money to do some great things to overcome health problems or whatever
Is
they're
it
going to do.
necessary to tell people to do that to people if they enjoy?
Well, I guess there's a counter argument, and sorry, I'm probably probably hopping on the wrong side of the fence now as a representative of a business organisation, but actually you've got, name some names, Coca-Cola and lots of other companies selling sugary drinks, sugary cakes, sugary snack bars or whatever, who are feeding them out there into the market, and people are grabbing them because they get hooked on the sugar. Maybe there is some governmental responsibility to try and manage the health of the nation.
Do you think he actually meant all of us, but hadn't quite got the courage to say you're all getting too fat?
Well, I mean, I'm obviously too fat, and I admit
there's
that.
a real obesity problem across the age groups, aren't there? Alex, so what is he saying then? Is it nannying?
I don't really know, to be honest. I think possibly nannying. I think this sugar tax has been coming for a while. We've known about it, haven't we? It's been on the rumour mill for a while. Jamie Oliver's tried to do a lot to get sugar out of food in schools, get the younger generation eating more healthily over the past. He must have been doing it for 5 to 10 years now. So, I mean, maybe this is the government's answer to saying, yes, we're going to now do something about it. But I think it just comes back to what you said, Rob. If someone wants to buy it, then you're not really going to stop them regardless of the price.
I think there's a pragmatism involved as well. I think that the National Health Service burden, because childhood obesity, although you said it is true across the whole of the generations, if you look at the longevity stretch, even in my life, of where hopefully I'm going to live to my mid-80s, and I think this week they said you're not really old until you're 85 these days, which if that's a phrase, let's travel with that as an idea. Because what that means is that's 20 years more than it was in 1950. So what means if you don't deal with childhood obesity now, you have got massive bills coming your way as a National Health Service. So I wonder if there's pragmatism behind it. And of course it's wisdom as well, but...
I mean, so, all right, so you go and buy a sugar-free drink.
Full of aspartame.
Yes, full of something that's not good for you, aspartame, and ease and stuff, which all the health people would say, those are awful for your health. But actually, there's nothing else. How are you going to sweeten it otherwise?
Or you get used to not having it so sweet.
Well, he's saying have a nice fruit juice, isn't he? He's saying I won't put tax on that.
And it's interesting, around the world as a whole, our diet is still amazing. And I think that's often what people don't take into account. Through history and around the world now, this present diet is enabling most people to get to 85. So that's interesting progress. Now, we want to make sure that people don't hurt themselves if they are aware of something they weren't aware of before and now can make a decision. But again, I'm always going back to people being given the information so that they can make a decision for their... Because what's going to happen otherwise? We talked about hypocrisy. You know what's going to happen? The National Health Service say, oh, you smoked. Well, I'm sorry. You'll have to wait in the queue. Oh, you drank a lot. Your liver. And so what's going to happen if we don't watch it is in the end, the cake will only be given to those people who didn't do certain things and contribute to their own illness.
Fibs, won't they? They'll say, no, never had sugar and never had a cigarette.
But the one thing is they can test your blood and they can have a look inside and they'll find out that you did.
Now we've all learned something. Right.
Got him open. Oh, no. You just wheel him out again.
Well, it is interesting because what do you do with that incredible problem for the NHS, you know? We know how to do more, so we lift the levels, and you can't afford
I just have a picture of people saying, all right then, well, I'll have a sugar-free drink and buy the Mars bar to go with it, you know. I mean, you can't control sugar completely.
Someone wants to do it.
So it'll be interesting to see what he's going to do. And, of course, he said that he isn't going to put any money on tobacco. Oh, he is increasing duty on tobacco, but freezing taxes on beer, cider, as well as whiskey and other spirits. So you can drink your head off then.
Yeah, everything else, all other alcoholic drinks are going up.
Are they?
Yes. So it's only the taxes on the beer was frozen to help pubs. And not increase beer pump prices.
Whiskey was to help Scotland, wasn't it?
Was
keep that vote.
Yeah, well.
It's very
as soon as he said it was
savvy of him, wasn't it?
Yes, it was implemented by the Scottish government, you know, as a sweetener to keep them happy. So yeah, Scottish whiskey because it's our biggest export.
Do pubs join your small businesses?
Yeah, we do have some pubs.
And are they at their wits' end?
The small pubs have had a really, really tough time. One of the things that FSB has campaigned very heavily on has been an end to the Tide tenancies in pubs where you
Yes.
had to buy your beer at a fairly hefty price from the brewery rather than able to take it from the open market.
Yes,
So we campaigned a lot to get that broken, and a lot has changed there. But it's still tough times for publicans, partly because, frankly, a lot of their demographic was people who were smokers who now can't smoke in the pubs, so they might as well stay at home and smoke. So that, coupled with being able to buy six-packs at discounted prices from the supermarkets and stay home and sit in front of your 42-inch television and watch the match, has made the last few years very, very tough for the pub trade.
So thou shalt not smoke, thou shalt not drink sugar drinks. What else shall we not do? But at the end of the day, we'll all make up our own minds. Good news for fuel duty. Yep, to be frozen. Why has he done that, do you think?
It's interesting. I thought he might take advantage of the drop in the oil price to recoup some stuff directly without the pain being there. So I was quite interested that he did that. He said the reason for it was to keep us on the move, which again I think I understand. That this is what I find fascinating, because entrepreneurial, setting small businesses a bit freer, more travel. I like the sound of all that.
Very good. Right, hold those thoughts, and we'll be back in a minute after this break and more from the budget.
That will come back.
Big entertainment just got bigger. With BT TV, you now get bigger shows, bigger sports, and bigger movies. All for tiny prices.
Rebel, and now end with the big splits.
I can't do the splits.
It's okay, we'll do it with special effects.
All for tiny prices.
BT TV, bigger shows, bigger sports, bigger movies.
At Unilever, we want our brands to help create a bright future. Hellmann's Real Mayonnaise is made with free-range eggs and is on its way to sourcing all its vegetable oil sustainably, which is good news for sandwiches and our planet. Unilever makes some of the world's most well-known brands, and many of our food ingredients are already sustainably sourced. Sustainably sourced oil is just one of the ways we're helping to create a bright future.
With my poor credit, I felt toxic.
Finance companies were asking very high interest rates.
Couldn't afford it. My only option was an out-of-warranty used car for cash, or so I thought.
I called Wheels for Sure. A week later, I had a lease for a brand new car.
All manufacturer-backed and upgrade to a new one every 3 years.
I felt valued. Too good to be true? No, simply true.
Used car on a costly loan or an affordable new leased one, you know the choice.
For sure!
Click or call Wheels for Sure on 0800 044 5806 now. We can help.
How Sif broke the curse of streaks. The princess cleaned and cleaned, but horrid streaks cursed her bathroom until she summoned Sif, Power and Shine. Sif banished all the limescale and streaks. For 100% streak-free shine, there's always a beautiful ending with Sif, Power and Shine.
With BT Mobile, you can get the UK's best value 4G plan. Starting from just £5 a month if you've got BT broadband at home. Enjoy the combined power of fast 4G and Wi-Fi in more places than any other mobile provider. And the peace of mind of monthly spend caps. You'll get a 12-month contract, and you can keep the phone you love. Switch today from just £5 a month. Anyone can get BT Mobile, and with 3 SIM-only plans, you'll find one that's right for you. Visit bt.com/mobile or call 0800 345 7345.
I think that's fair.
OK, welcome back. It's Talk Solent. We're in our last quarter, and we've had a look at what the Chancellor's going to do with us all, whether he's going to nanny us, stop us from drinking sugary drinks because they'll cost more, and so on and so on. Interesting. Now, this did slightly surprise me, and I don't think I can honestly tell you why, but a package of 115 million, said the Chancellor, will support those who are homeless and to reduce rough sleeping. So just explain to me, would you, if you can read his mind, what will that money do then?
Well, I think one thing it'll do is assuage consciences a bit. I mean, rough sleeping is a very obvious thing on the streets around Westminster, isn't it? When you go to London, you get off the train at Waterloo and you find people sleeping under the arches there.
Well, yeah.
So it's kind of the visible end of the difficulties of housing and problems in society. So I think it's addressing a very visible tip of an iceberg, perhaps, and no doubt Jeremy Corbyn and others have been very busy while we're on this show arguing that he's not addressing the main part of it. But.
Sure. What do you want to do with 115 million?
It's interesting. I think that is absolutely how I would understand it. It's early days yet. Interested to see what the press say tomorrow. But it seems to me that the housing crisis is behind it, because there is a massive housing crisis. From a construction viewpoint, we are really having to face a massive problem. If we don't build new houses very, very quickly, we've seen nothing yet on homelessness. And I just wonder if he's trying to ameliorate what it will look like on the streets if we don't move quickly enough. So he's sent the money there to stop it looking as bad as it would do if the houses don't come on time. Ooh. And lots of people don't want houses. They're not here.
Not in my backyard.
And Hampshire's famous for being not just NIMBY, not in my backyard, but Notes as well, which is not over there either. You know, and that's what you watch how it happens. No one wants anyone to live near them, particularly in the south. Yeah. And yet that's where the demand is for new jobs. And I'm obviously in the construction industry, and I'm very pro allowing people to come and live and enjoy what I'm enjoying. I like that idea. But the homeless situation, so much of it isn't actually recorded, and this is what concerns me. In Eastleigh, I know a little bit about sofa surfing, for instance, which is hidden. Yeah. Young people in particular, particularly from, again, broken family situations, find themselves with friends or friends' families, and they're sleeping in their home, not in a bed, but comfortably enough compared to the street. But where that leads them is often into something eventually that ends up nowhere. And I think what worries me, again, is the local people know the best. I wish it would be more devolved, Chrissy. Because I know Eastleigh really well. I know lots of people who know it better than I do, who could really be the ones who could do with that money. What happened to it, of course? As always, it'll be cascaded down from the centre, seen as a tick that the government have done, but it won't actually percolate accurately.
But who's going to hand it out? Are people going to go around to the homeless and say, "Oh well, here's 50 quid for you because you're homeless"? I mean, I'm asking the question.
Addressing homelessness is a difficult one, because at one level, if you actually make it easier for the people who are on the streets, then you encourage more people to leave their home in wherever in the country it is they come from and actually gravitate towards London, for example. So you can, by badly applied aid, actually worsen the problem rather than fix it at source.
I think it would be the provision towards short-term dormitory accommodation to enable you to have more spaces available in that setting rather than the street. And that will come there from the borough and local councils, I would think.
So Alex, so let's say it's going into the dormitories and stuff, then, you know, how do you get people to move on from the dormitory? It's
it's very difficult. I think that's where the roles of possibly charity is then going to come back in. I mean, there's a big sleeping rough in Winchester, isn't there? Every time I go to Winchester,
Trinity's a big homeless charity in Winchester.
Exactly. We got that, and we got the centre next door to the Discovery Centre on Jewellery Street.
Well, the church's night centre.
Night shelter. And people are going there, but there's not enough room there for them to go. So they go and hope to get a bed for the night, but because there's so many people trying to use that service, they end up pushed back out on the streets, and they're no further or better off.
Living day to day.
Living day to day.
That's where the money will go. But it'll be short term, won't it? Yeah. It's only short term.
But I would hope that once they get into that setting, so get into the night shelter, there's going to be people or charities on hand to then guide and help going forward, so we don't have.
Do the churches work with charities on this kind of thing?
I think the churches traditionally have always been at the forefront, but they've often been, and this is one of the things I'm doing with the collaborative work, is doing it with other people. I mean, I love Call the Midwife as a programme. There was the Nunnatus house, there were the nuns, if you like, there before the state were. Then the state came alongside, and to me it's a fantastic picture of what we could re-find again. Instead of just a charitable solution, the state and the charitable sector, which I call the civic sector, which is everyone of goodwill, everyone seeking common good, not just the churches. But the churches, they are made up of so many people who would be like to volunteer, and you do find.
But the money's got to come from somewhere, hasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think the money should come to the churches necessarily. It should come to those organisations, as Alex was saying, who can signpost the guys once they get to those dormitories into something that means you're not into a cycle of back in again.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the street pastors, for instance. I didn't realise just how effective they are as a signposting. By being present, they stop trouble on a Friday and Saturday night. They help people who are really drunk not get hurt, and that's great. And that was possibly where its greatest strength was in the beginning. We're hearing more and more now that they signpost well, because they get known by the people each week, and they're signposting more and more effectively. So I think that's a good example.
So who runs street pastors? I mean, I know a guy who's a street pastor.
Yeah.
I've never asked him the question.
No, the
Who-
church,
the church,
it's the Ascension Trust is the charitable organisation in the middle of the country that runs the whole finances of it, but everything is devolved to the local level, and that's why I like to talk about church across a region. Individual churches in the past have done things on their own and invented wheels that are already there. And the last thing we need is that. And so working collaboratively, and street pastors, I always use an example. I mean, the Eastleigh street pastors come from 16 different churches.
Right.
The ones in Southampton, I think it's 33 different churches. So that's a joint church offer through one pipe.
Just while we're on that track, so have you got to have a bishop or an archdeacon cracking the whip saying, you will all join together in this project?
Well, the street pastors had to have safeguarding in place, obviously. If you're going to walk on the streets at night, you need training. So the only way they could vouchsafe for that was to send it through the churches and get the leaders of the churches to vouchsafe the individuals so that they had that safety in place. Other organisations have other ideas. That one works because of its Christian ethos. But the common good ethos, which I think is such a... I love the civic square, you know, where everyone who wants to do some good stuff, whether they're Christians or not, they love people and they want to help them. We could make that easier. And that's what I get excited by.
Well, you are a great optimist, as I would expect from a Christian. I'm not sure everybody would follow that, but it's a lovely thought, isn't it?
The civic horizon.
Everybody wants to help people, do they? Do they?
Yeah, I think
so.
I think so.
Yeah, I think the churches provide a banner for that, and it's interesting to see you're so embracing of people from a secular point of view coming into that same ethos.
Okay, well that's all very encouraging. I hope something comes of all this. No doubt we'll talk about it on Talk Solent. Now a big one that didn't affect us as badly as some areas was flooding. Although Hambledon as a village would tell you it affected them extremely badly. I'm not even sure if their main street's back now after 18 months. They've had so much work done. But compared with Cumbria and some areas, we were perhaps less worried than some. But flood defence spending is going to be increased by 700 million, funded by 0.5 percentage point increase in the insurance premium tax. Does all that make sense?
This looks, when I heard this to start with, I thought, oh, that's a brilliant idea. No, brilliant. Another 700 million to fund flood defences. But if you think about it more, they're raising 0.5% on insurance tax. For the people that's insurance premiums have just rocketed because they got flooded 6 months ago, they're going to pay extra now to re-put the flood defences back in. So it's kind of...
But so is everyone else.
But so is everybody else. So in that aspect, I don't mind. It's fine. It's a good idea.
You've talked yourself into it.
I have now.
It's very good, very good.
Very good. What about you two?
Patchwork quilt and helicopters, phrases that get used a lot. Patchwork quilt, let everyone locally have more power in a patchwork quilt. But if you do that, there'll be some areas that need helicopter help. Central government is got to change radically, Chrissy, from being a place that delivers ideas to a place that facilitates people who are struggling to get to the same place as everyone else. So I love this idea that with flood defence, which is hitting the north, let's say, more than it has the south this last time round, for us all to contribute a little bit, helicopter-wise, to help that. We all get the benefit from that patchwork quilt being made better. Now, the other thing is about housing. We are so stupid to build houses on floodplains.
Yeah.
I mean, the developers, you can't really blame them, in my opinion, because that's where government should say no. Climate change-wise, ecologically, you do not build there. Brownfield sites, Chrissy, still should be what we do. Really, there should be more help for brownfield development, but hey.
Rob, what do you think? Is it a good thing? Well, it's got to be 700 million funded to those people who get it worse, who bought a house in good faith. It's got to be.
Yeah, it's a good thing if it gets there without being creamed off by 6 different levels of civil service along the way, which comes back to your point about it being locally used effectively. From a federation of small businesses perspective, I think one of the great frustrations for us was when flooding was going on in the Somerset Levels, when it went on more recently in Cumbria, was that help for local small businesses was so slow in coming, and when it did come, guess what? It came from the local authorities. It came at a local level.
Interestingly, we were expecting an announcement from the Chancellor about there being a Boris Johnson for the Solent, and an elected mayor. And I'm told on the grapevine that it will still happen. It will still happen.
But the mayor will still happen.
Yeah.
Because the politicians, the local politicians, are not in favour of the idea, are they?
No, so it's
they don't want
they're waiting
someone
for the local elections, and then I understand they're going to...
That's what really excites me about this year. It's an amazing year of elections, isn't it? Borough elections, London mayoral elections, Scottish elections, and the EU referendum.
Yeah.
Last year it was all about memorials. Did you know how many memorials we had? It's a fascinating year, looking back. So we look back to who we were and what we've been, just as we go into a year when we have to make decisions. I find that absolutely fascinating. And so, in answer to that question, I think Devo Met, as it's called, which goes to Manchester and all those guys first.
Yeah.
We know there's a Hampshire bid in, but the Solent City guys have gone for a competitive one, as we know, with the mayor. Now, I think the mayor could be a fantastic thing.
Well, watch this space, because they are allegedly going to announce it later in this year. So thank you so much. Thank goodness you all knew about money. And I hope, if you bought a lottery ticket on the Isle of Wight, could you possibly go and check it? Because somebody is owed £1 million.
Is that right?
Yes. Anyway, it's been lovely being with you, and I'll see you again on Friday. You have a good day. Bye-bye.